Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the strange ship floating in space. He had been working in the asteroid belt for 3 years now, and he had never seen anything like this before. The ship was huge and made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to shine with its own light. "Hey Jake, you seeing this thing?" called out Pete from the radio. Pete was back on their salvage ship, the Rusty Bucket. They had been partners for 2 years now, picking through old wrecks and dead satellites for anything worth selling. "Yeah, I see it," Jake said into his helmet mic. "Looks like it's been here a while. No power readings, no life signs. Just floating dead in space." Jake pushed himself closer to the alien vessel using his suit's tiny rockets. The ship was smooth, with no windows that he could see. Strange symbols were carved into the hull, glowing faintly blue. He had studied some alien languages in school, but these symbols were completely new to him. "Be careful, Jake," Pete's voice crackled through the radio. "That thing gives me the creeps. Maybe we should just report it to the authorities and move on." But Jake was already too curious to turn back. This could be the find of a lifetime. One alien ship could make them both rich beyond their wildest dreams. He found what looked like an airlock and touched it gently with his gloved hand. The moment his hand made contact, the symbols on the hull began to glow brighter. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, revealing a corridor filled with soft white light. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He should have listened to Pete and stayed away, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. "Jake, what's happening over there?" "I'm reading some kind of energy spike." Pete's voice sounded worried now. "The airlock just opened," Jake said, floating at the entrance. "I'm going to take a quick look inside." "Are you crazy? Get back here right now." But Jake was already inside the ship. The corridor was clean and bright, nothing like the rusty, dirty ships he usually worked on. The air felt fresh and breathable, though he kept his helmet on just to be safe. Strange music seemed to play softly from the walls themselves, a melody that was both beautiful and alien. He moved down the corridor, his boots making soft sounds on the smooth floor. Everything seemed to be made from the same dark, shining metal as the outside. There were no buttons or controls that he could see, but somehow lights turned on as he walked, following his path through the ship. Jake came to a large room filled with strange machines and displays. Holographic images floated in the air, showing star maps and alien writing. In the center of the room was a chair or throne made of crystal, surrounded by glowing panels. "This is incredible," he whispered to himself. He reached out to touch one of the floating displays, trying to understand what it meant. The moment his finger touched the hologram, everything changed. Lights flashed all around him, and a loud humming sound filled the air. The floor beneath his feet began to glow, and he felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body. "Jake! Jake, respond!" Pete's voice was shouting through the radio, but it sounded far away and distorted. Jake tried to move, but his body felt heavy and slow. The lights around him grew brighter and brighter until he could barely see. The humming sound became louder, almost musical, and he felt himself falling. His vision blurred, and the last thing he remembered was the feeling of floating, as if he were underwater. When Jake woke up, he was no longer in his spacesuit. He was lying on a soft surface in a room he had never seen before. The ceiling above him glowed with a gentle light, and he could hear the soft hum of machinery somewhere nearby. He sat up slowly, his head spinning. He was wearing strange clothes now, a simple gray shirt and pants made of material that felt smoother than silk. His spacesuit was nowhere to be seen. The room around him was small but comfortable, with walls that seemed to shift color from blue to purple as he watched. Jake tried to stand up, but something stopped him. When he looked down, he saw bands of light around his wrists and ankles. They looked like jewelry, but when he tried to remove them, they would not move. They did not hurt, but they held him firmly in place. "Hello, human." Jake spun around to see a woman standing in the doorway. At least he thought it was a woman. She was tall and graceful, with skin that looked like it was made of silver and blue. Her hair was long and white, flowing like water around her shoulders. Her eyes were large and bright, like stars in a night sky. She wore clothing that seemed to be made of light itself, flowing and changing as she moved. She was beautiful in a way that made Jake's breath catch in his throat, but there was something dangerous about her too, like a sword wrapped in silk. "Who are you?" Jake asked, his voice rough. "Where am I?" The woman smiled, showing teeth that were perfectly white and sharp. "I am Zarathiel of the Kethmori," she said in perfect English. "And you are exactly what I have been searching for." She walked closer to him, and Jake could smell something like flowers and lightning in the air around her. Her movements were smooth and predatory, like a cat stalking its prey. "You carry the resonance," she continued, her voice soft but commanding. "You belong to me now, human. Your name is Jake Morrison, age 28, born on Earth in the city of Denver. You work as a salvage engineer and you have no family." Jake's blood ran cold. How did she know all of that? "I don't belong to anyone," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Let me go." Zarathiel laughed, a sound like music and thunder. "You do not understand yet," she said. "But you will. You are mine now, Jake Morrison. Your capture was not chance, it was destiny." Jake spent the next few hours testing the limits of his prison. The light bands around his wrists and ankles would stretch only so far before becoming solid as steel. He could move around the small room, but he could not reach the door. Every time he tried to force the bands, they would glow brighter and push back against him. The room itself was strange and wonderful. The walls showed images of alien worlds, purple skies with 3 moons, cities made of crystal and light, vast oceans under foreign stars. Sometimes he could hear music playing softly, melodies that made him feel homesick for places he had never been. Zarathiel returned several hours later, carrying a tray of food that looked and smelled delicious. She set it down just within his reach and watched him with those bright star-like eyes. "You must eat," she said. "The test will require your strength." Jake's stomach was growling, but he did not trust her. "What tests? What do you want from me?" "I want to understand what makes humans so special," she replied, sitting down across from him with fluid grace. "My people have studied your species for some time. You should be weak. Your bodies are fragile, your lives are short, and you have no natural weapons, yet you spread across your solar system in just a few hundred years. How?" Jake picked up a piece of fruit from the tray. It tasted like apples mixed with starlight. "Maybe because we're too stubborn to know when we're beaten." Zarathiel tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. "Tell me about your work, Jake Morrison." "You fix broken things, yes?" "I salvage old ships and equipment," Jake said carefully. "Fix what can be fixed, sell what can't be saved for parts." "Show me." The room around them changed suddenly. The walls became transparent, and Jake could see he was on a massive ship traveling through space. In the center of the room, a holographic image appeared. A broken piece of machinery that looked like nothing Jake had ever seen before. "This device has been damaged for over 1,000 years, Zarathiel said. "My people's greatest engineers cannot repair it. Show me how humans think." Jake stood up and walked around the hologram, studying it from every angle. The machine was beautiful and complex, with parts that seemed to flow into each other like water. But he could see the problem. There was a crack in the central crystal, and the energy flow was blocked. "I need tools," he said. Zarathiel waved her hand, and a collection of strange instruments appeared on a nearby table. Jake picked them up one by one, testing their weight and balance. They were clearly alien, but tools were tools. He could figure out how to use them. For the next hour, Jake worked on the machine. He could not fix the crack in the crystal, that would need specialized equipment, but he could redirect the energy flow around it. He used techniques he had learned fixing human machines, adapting them to this alien technology. When he activated the device, it hummed to life, glowing with soft blue light. Zarathiel gasped, her eyes wide with surprise. "How did you do that?" she whispered. "I went around the problem instead of through it," Jake said with a shrug. "Sometimes the best solution is not the obvious one." Zarathiel stared at the working machine for a long time. Then she waved her hand again and the hologram disappeared. "My people would have tried to fix the crystal itself. They would have spent years creating new tools, new techniques. They would never have thought to simply go around it. Different species, different ways of thinking," Jake said. He was starting to understand something important. "What happened to your people, Zarathiel? Why do you need humans?" Her face became sad, and for a moment she looked very old despite her beauty. "The Kethmori were once the greatest civilization in this part of the galaxy. We lived for thousands of years, we could speak to each other with our minds, and our technology was like magic. But we became too proud, too sure that our way was the only way." She stood up and walked to the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. "We stopped changing, stopped growing. We married only within our own bloodlines to keep our abilities pure. But purity made us weak. Our children live shorter lives, our technology fails, and our minds become rigid. We are dying, Jake Morrison. Jake felt a strange sympathy for her. And you think humans can help? I think humans are what we used to be, she said softly. Young, adaptable, full of new ideas. The resonance I detected in you, it means your genetic pattern could blend with ours. Your children would have the best of both species. My children? Jake's voice rose. Hold on. Nobody said anything about children. Zarathiel turned back to him and there was something almost pleading in her eyes. Not just children. Partnership. Your people could learn from ours and we could learn from yours. Together we could become something greater than either species alone. She moved closer to him, and Jake could see that she was not as calm as she appeared. Her hands were shaking slightly and her breathing was quick and shallow. My people's council sent me to find humans with the resonance and bring them back, she continued. They plan to take what they need by force, but I think there might be a better way. What do you mean? I mean that maybe belonging to someone should be a choice, not a command. Jake stared at her for a long moment. This alien woman had kidnapped him, held him prisoner, and talked about him like he was property. But now he was seeing something else in her. Doubt, hope, maybe even loneliness. If you really believe that, he said slowly, then let me go. Zarathiel's face went through several emotions at once, fear, hope, sadness, and something that might have been relief. She raised her hand and the light bands around Jake's wrists and ankles faded away. Jake rubbed his wrists, testing his freedom. He could run now, try to find an escape pod or send a message to Pete. But where would he go? They were probably light years from human space by now. Thank you, he said instead. Do not thank me yet, Zarathiel replied. We are still traveling to my homeworld. The council will expect me to bring you before them. And Jake Morrison, yeah? Some of my people will not be as open to new ideas as I am. When we arrive, you will need all of your human cleverness to survive. Jake nodded, understanding the warning. He was free of his bonds, but he was far from safe. And despite everything, he found himself wanting to help this strange, beautiful alien woman and her dying people. Maybe that was the most human thing of all. The desire to fix what was broken, even when it was not your problem to solve. The Kethamori homeworld was both beautiful and heartbreaking. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, Jake pressed his face to the window and watched a civilization in slow decline pass beneath them. The cities were magnificent, towers of crystal and metal that reached toward the sky like frozen music. But many of the towers were dark and whole sections of the cities appeared to be abandoned. It was not always like this, Zarathiel said quietly, standing beside him. When I was young, every tower blazed with light. The streets were full of people and our ships filled the sky. Now, she did not finish the sentence, but Jake could see the sadness in her eyes. The ship landed in what appeared to be a spaceport, but it was mostly empty. Only a few other vessels sat on the vast landing field, and Jake could see that some of them had not moved in years. How many of your people are left? He asked. Perhaps 10 million scattered across 12 worlds, Zarathiel replied. Once we numbered in the billions. 2 guards were waiting for them when they left the ship. They were tall and pale like Zarathiel, but their faces were cold and suspicious. They wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, and they carried weapons that hummed with energy. Scout Zarathiel, one of them said in a voice like wind through ice. The council is waiting. You were expected days ago. My apologies, Commander Veltar, Zarathiel replied formally. The capture took longer than anticipated. The guard's eyes fixed on Jake, and Jake felt like he was being examined by a scientist looking at a bug. So this is the human. It looks weak. Do not judge by appearances, Zarathiel warned. This one is more capable than he seems. They traveled through the city in a vehicle that floated silently above the street. Jake stared out the windows at the empty buildings and deserted parks. Occasionally he saw groups of Kethamori walking slowly through the streets, but they all looked tired and old. He did not see a single child. Where are all the young ones? He asked. There are few children born to us now, Zarathiel said sadly. Perhaps 1 birth for every 100 attempts. And many of those who are born do not live past their first century. The council chamber was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch up into the clouds. 12 figures sat on thrones arranged in a circle, each one wearing robes that shifted color like oil on water. They were all ancient, even by Kethamori standards, with faces that looked like they had been carved from marble. In the center of the circle stood a platform, and that was where the guards led Jake. He felt very small and very human under the gaze of the 12 council members. So, said one of them, a woman with silver hair and eyes like black holes. This is what Zarathiel believes will save us. It does not look like much. High Counselor Ithandra, Zarathiel said, bowing deeply. I present Jake Morrison of Earth. He carries the resonance, as I reported. Yes, we have confirmed this, said another council member, a man whose skin seemed to glow with its own light. The question is what to do with him. Extract what we need and dispose of the rest, said a third counselor coldly. These creatures breed quickly. We can always get more. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting mad would not help anyone right now. With respect, honored counselors, Zarathiel said carefully, I believe there may be a better approach. This human has shown remarkable adaptability and problem-solving abilities. Perhaps we should consider partnership rather than exploitation. Several of the counselors laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. Partnership, said High Counselor Ithandra. With these short-lived primitives? You have spent too much time in space, Scout. It has affected your judgment. May I speak? Jake asked loudly. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him, and he could feel the weight of their attention like a physical thing. You may speak, human, Ithandra said, though I doubt you have anything useful to say. Jake took a deep breath. This was his one chance to make them understand. You're all looking at this wrong, he said. You think the problem is that your bloodlines are too weak, but that's not the problem at all. Explain, demanded the glowing counselor. The problem is that you've been trying to keep everything pure for too long. Jake continued. You've been marrying the same families over and over again, trying to preserve your abilities. But that's not how genetics works. That's not how life works. He gestured to the empty chamber around them. Look at this place. Look at your cities. You've got all this amazing technology, but you're dying because you're afraid to change. You're afraid to let anything new into your lives. You dare to lecture us? Hissed one of the counselors. We were building empires when your species was still living in caves. Yeah, and how did that work out for you? Jake shot back. You built something beautiful and then you stopped growing. You stopped adapting. You became so focused on staying the same that you forgot how to survive. Several of the counselors rose from their thrones, their faces dark with anger. But Jake pressed on. Where I come from, we call it hybrid vigor, he said. When you mix different bloodlines, different ideas, different ways of thinking, you get something stronger than either parent. That's how humans spread across the galaxy so fast. We take the best from everyone we meet and make it our own. Enough, roared High Counselor Ithandra. Guards, take this creature to the extraction chambers. We will take what we need from it and be done with this foolishness. But before the guards could move, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed and a voice echoed from the walls. Alert, unauthorized departure detected. Scout vessel Star Whisper has left dock without clearance. Ithandra's eyes blazed with fury. Zarathiel, what have you done? But Zarathiel was no longer standing in her place by the wall. During Jake's speech, she had somehow moved to a control panel near the platform. Her hands flew over the strange symbols, and suddenly the platform Jake stood on began to glow. I'm sorry, honored counselors, Zarathiel called out, but I cannot let you do this. The human speaks the truth even if you cannot hear it. The platform flashed with blinding light, and Jake felt the familiar sensation of teleportation. When his vision cleared, he was standing in the cargo bay of a ship, and Zarathiel was beside him. Welcome aboard the Star Whisper, she said with a grin that was both beautiful and dangerous. I hope you're ready for an adventure, Jake Morrison. Did you just steal a ship and kidnap me from your own people? Jake asked, hardly believing what had just happened. Technically, I rescued you, Zarathiel replied, her hands dancing over the ship's controls. And yes, I stole my own ship, though I prefer to think of it as an extended loan. The ship shuddered as it lifted off, and through the viewports, Jake could see other vessels rising to pursue them. Zarathiel's expression became grim as she pushed the engines to their limits. They will not stop hunting us now, she said. We have broken the highest laws of the Kethmori. We are enemies of our own people. Any regrets? Jake asked. Zarathiel looked at him for a long moment, and her smile was sad but determined. Only that it took me so long to see the truth you showed me. My people are dying because they are afraid to live. Perhaps it is time someone showed them a different way. Jake nodded, understanding that they had both crossed a line they could not uncross. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The Star Whisper had been running for 3 days when Jake finally asked the question that had been bothering him. Where exactly are we going? Zarathiel looked up from the star charts she had been studying. They were in the ship's main cabin, a space that managed to be both alien and comfortable. The wall showed a view of the stars rushing past them, and soft music played from hidden speakers. I was hoping you could guide us to a human settlement, she said. Somewhere small and isolated where we could plan our next move without being detected. Jake thought about it. Most human colonies were heavily monitored by the government, but there were a few independent settlements that valued their privacy. I know a place, he said finally. New Haven Colony. It's about 4 days from here if we take the back routes. They don't ask too many questions about who comes and goes. And they will not turn us over to the authorities? Not if I vouch for you, Jake said. The colonists there are tough people. They respect strength and honesty. If you're straight with them, they'll give you a fair chance. Zarathiel programmed the new course into the ship's navigation system. As they traveled, she began teaching Jake about Kethmori technology. He was amazed by how advanced it was. Their computers could think, their weapons could bend space itself, and their medical equipment could heal injuries that would be fatal to humans. This is incredible, Jake said, studying a device that could regrow lost limbs. Your people have solved problems that human scientists can only dream about. Yet we could not solve the problem of our own extinction, Zarathiel said sadly. All our knowledge means nothing if we have no future. Jake looked at her with new understanding. That's why you need us, isn't it? Not just for our genetics, but for our way of thinking. You've gotten so advanced that you've forgotten how to be simple. What do you mean? Take this medical device, Jake said, holding up the healing tool. It's amazing, but it's also incredibly complex. What happens when it breaks? Do you have simpler backup methods? Zarathiel frowned. We would repair it or build a new one. But what if you can't? What if you don't have the right materials or the time? Jake pulled out a basic human first aid kit from his pack. This stuff is primitive compared to your tech, but it works almost anywhere with almost anything. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. As they talked, Jake began to see patterns in Kethmori thinking. They were brilliant, but they had become so focused on perfection that they had lost the ability to improvise. Every problem had to be solved with the most advanced technology possible, even when a simpler approach would work better. You know what your people need? Jake said. They need to learn how to fail. Fail? Zarathiel looked confused. Humans fail all the time, Jake explained. We try something, it doesn't work, so we try something else, we adapt. Your people are so afraid of being imperfect that they've stopped trying new things altogether. When they reached New Haven Colony, Jake was relieved to see that the settlement looked healthy and growing. The colonists had built their homes into the sides of mountains, and their fields stretched across fertile valleys. It was a hard life, but a good one. The colony's leader was a tough woman named Kate Sullivan. She met them at the landing pad with a group of armed colonists, but her expression was more curious than hostile. Jake Morrison, she said with a grin. Heard you disappeared a few weeks back. Pete's been worried sick. Pete's here? Jake asked, surprised. Showed up 3 days ago asking if anyone had seen you. Said you vanished while exploring some derelict ship. Jake looked at Zarathiel, who nodded. We should tell them the truth, she said quietly. If we are asking for their help, they deserve honesty. So Jake told them everything. The alien ship, his capture, the dying Kethmori civilization, and their escape from the council. The colonists listened in silence, their faces showing a mixture of amazement and suspicion. So let me get this straight, Kate said when he finished. You're asking us to trust an alien who kidnapped you and is being hunted by her own people? That's about the size of it, Jake admitted. Kate looked at Zarathiel for a long moment. What do you want from us? A chance to prove that cooperation is better than conquest, Zarathiel replied. I can share our technology with you. Help you solve problems that would take your scientists decades to figure out. In return, I ask only for a place to stay while we plan how to help both our peoples. And if your people come looking for you, then we will face them together, Zarathiel said simply. Kate was quiet for several minutes, thinking it over. Finally, she nodded. We'll give you a week. Prove that you're worth the risk. Zarathiel did not waste time. Within hours, she was working with the colony's engineers to improve their power systems. Jake watched in amazement as she adapted Kethmori technology to work with human equipment. The results were remarkable. The colony's energy output increased by 300%, and their equipment became more efficient and reliable. But it was not just the technology that impressed the colonists. Zarathiel listened to their problems and offered solutions that were both advanced and practical. When their water purification system broke down, she showed them how to build a better one using materials they had on hand. "She's not like what I expected an alien to be," Kate told Jake on the third day. "She's helpful. She wants to save her people," Jake said. "But she's smart enough to know that the old ways aren't working anymore." On the fourth day, their peace was shattered. The colony sensors detected a fleet of ships approaching. 12 Kethmori vessels, heavily armed and moving fast. "They found us," Zarathiel said, her face pale. "I had hoped we would have more time." Kate gathered the colonists in the main meeting hall. They were scared but determined. "We've got 30 fighters and maybe enough firepower to take on 1 or 2 ships," she said. "Against 12, we don't stand a chance in a straight fight." "Then we don't fight straight," Jake said. "Zarathiel, how do Kethmori tactics usually work?" "Direct assault," she replied. "Overwhelming force, minimal losses. We do not adapt well to unexpected strategies." Jake grinned. "Then let's give them something they've never seen before." He outlined his plan quickly. Instead of meeting the Kethmori fleet in space, they would let them land. The colonists would hide in the mountains while Jake and Zarathiel led the enemy ships into the valley. Then they would spring a trap that no Kethmori commander would ever expect. "You want to use mining explosives?" Kate asked, incredulous. "Lots of mining explosives," Jake confirmed. "Buried all around the valley, triggered by remote detonators. When the ships come down to search for us, we blow the whole valley." "That's insane," said one of the colonists. "That's why it might work," Jake replied. The plan worked better than Jake had dared to hope. The Kethmori ships landed in the valley just as he had predicted, their crews confident that they could overwhelm any resistance. But when the explosives went off, the resulting avalanche buried half the fleet and damaged the rest beyond repair. The surviving Kethmori soldiers were trapped in the valley with no way to escape. Jake and Zarathiel met with their commander, a proud warrior named Velkorian, who looked at them with a mixture of anger and respect. "You fight like no opponent we have ever faced," he said to Jake. "How did you know we would land in the valley?" "Because I know how your people think," Jake replied. "You always choose the most logical, most efficient approach. But sometimes the best strategy is the one nobody expects." Velkorian stared at him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to laugh. "By the ancient stars," he said, "you beat us with rocks and explosives. My grandfather would have been impressed. Will you listen to what we have to say?" Zarathiel asked her fellow Kethmori. Velkorian looked around at his stranded soldiers, then at the humans who had defeated them so thoroughly. "Scout Zarathiel," he said formally, "I think we have little choice but to listen." 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the joint research station they had built in the empty space between human and Kethmori territory. Through the great windows, he could see ships from both species coming and going, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible for either civilization alone. The station was a marvel of combined engineering. Human creativity had merged with Kethmori technology to create something entirely new. The corridors were wide and bright, designed to accommodate both species comfortably. Gardens filled with plants from both worlds provided fresh air and beauty. And in the laboratories, miracles happened every day. "The first children will be born next month," Zarathiel said, joining him at the window. She moved with the same grace as always, but there was something different about her now, a peace that had not been there before. "How many couples have volunteered for the program?" Jake asked. 47 human Kethmori pairs," she replied. "And more are asking to join every week." "It seems that love truly does know no boundaries," Jake smiled. The voluntary genetic exchange program had been his idea, but it had grown far beyond anything he had imagined. Humans and Kethmori who chose to bond together were producing children that combined the best traits of both species. The early medical scans showed remarkable results: enhanced intelligence, improved physical abilities, and most importantly, the long lifespans that would give the new generation time to explore the galaxy. "Any word from the Kethmori Council?" Jake asked. "High Counselor Ithandra has agreed to visit the station next week," Zarathiel said. "She wants to see the children for herself. I think she is beginning to understand that change is not always a threat." It had taken months of careful diplomacy to reach this point. The human government had been suspicious of alien contact at first, and many Kethmori still believed that cooperation with primitives was beneath them. But the results spoke for themselves. The joint research teams had made breakthrough discoveries that neither species could have achieved alone. Dr. Chen's team finished the new faster-than-light drive yesterday, Jake said. They say it's 50% more efficient than anything either of our species had before. And Captain Rodriguez's security innovations have reduced piracy in this sector by 90%. Zarathiel added, it seems that human tactical thinking combined with Kethmori sensor technology makes for very effective law enforcement. They walked together through the station's main corridor, greeting the mixed crews they passed. Jake had learned to recognize the subtle differences between the various Kethmori clans, while Zarathiel could now tell apart humans from different worlds just by their accents and mannerisms. In the central plaza, they found a group of children playing together, some human, some Kethmori, and a few of the new hybrid offspring. The children showed no awareness of the historic significance of their friendship. To them, having playmates with silver skin or pointed ears was perfectly normal. That is our future, Zarathiel said softly, watching a human girl teach a young Kethmori boy how to play hopscotch. A generation that will grow up thinking of both species as simply people. Is that what you meant when you said I belong to you? Jake asked. That we were meant to build this future together. Zarathiel turned to face him, her star-bright eyes serious. I need to tell you something, Jake Morrison. Something I should have said long ago. She led him to a quiet corner of the plaza, away from the playing children. When she spoke again, her voice was filled with an emotion he had never heard from her before. The resonance I detected in you was real, she said. But it was not just genetic compatibility. My people have legends of soul bonds, connections that transcend species and space. When I first scanned you, I felt something I had never experienced before, a recognition as if I had been searching for you my entire life without knowing it. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. What are you saying? I am saying that when I told you that you belonged to me, I was speaking from ancient instinct, not conscious thought. But now I know the truth. She reached out and took his hands in hers. I do not own you, Jake Morrison. But if you will have me, I would like to belong to you, as you belong to me. Jake looked into her eyes and saw everything he had learned about her over the past months. Her courage, her intelligence, her determination to save her people even at the cost of everything she had known. But more than that, he saw love, pure and simple. Yes, he said, pulling her closer. Yes, I will have you. And you have me for as long as you want me. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of alarms. Both of them tensed, remembering the last time they had heard that sound. But these alarms were different. Not warning of attack, but announcing the arrival of important visitors. The Galactic Council delegation, Zarathiel said, checking her wrist communicator. They are early. They hurried to the docking bay where a massive ship was settling into place. The Galactic Council was an alliance of 12 different alien species, and they had come to investigate reports of the human Kethmori cooperation. Some were friendly, others suspicious, but all were curious about what they had built here. The delegation was led by Ambassador Ixthara, a being that looked like a cross between a spider and a tree. Her species, the Velnathi, were known for their wisdom and neutrality. So, she said in a voice like rustling leaves, this is the station where 2 dying species found new life. We have heard remarkable stories. Jake and Zarathiel gave them a tour of the station, showing off the various research projects and introducing them to the mixed crews. The ambassadors asked many questions, some skeptical, others intrigued. Your success has not gone unnoticed, Ambassador Ixthara said when the tour was complete. Other species are watching to see if this cooperation can truly last. Some hope it will succeed. Others fear what it might mean for the galaxy's balance of power. What do you think? Jake asked. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment, her many eyes studying him and Zarathiel. I think, she said finally, that you have shown something remarkable. Not just that different species can work together, but that they can become something greater than the sum of their parts. This is a lesson that many civilizations would do well to learn. Does that mean the Council will support us? Zarathiel asked. It means the Council will watch and wait, the ambassador replied. But you will not be hindered in your work. And if you continue to prove that cooperation is better than conquest, you may find yourselves with more allies than you expect. After the delegation left, Jake and Zarathiel stood once again at the observation deck watching the stars. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and challenges. "Do you ever regret it?" Jake asked. "Giving up your old life for this uncertain future?" Zarathiel smiled, the expression lighting up her entire face. "Do you regret being captured by an alien woman who told you that you belonged to her?" Jake laughed, remembering that first frightening encounter that had led to everything that followed. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he said honestly. "Then we are both exactly where we belong," Zarathiel said, taking his hand. "Building a future that neither of our species could have imagined alone." As they watched, another ship approached the station, this one carrying a group of young humans and Kethmori who had volunteered to establish a new colony on a distant world. They would take with them the knowledge and hope that had been born on this station, spreading the message that diversity was strength and that love could bridge any gap. Jake squeezed Zarathiel's hand, thinking about all the children who would grow up in this new galaxy they were building. Children who would never think of humans and Kethmori as separate species, but as two parts of the same greater whole. It had all started with a simple salvage mission and an alien woman who believed in destiny. Now it was becoming something that would change the galaxy forever, and at the heart of it all was the most human truth of all, that the best way to save yourself was to help save someone else. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and full of promise. And Jake Morrison, once a simple salvage engineer, now found himself helping to salvage something much more precious, the future itself.